Tom Brady is retiring, at least for now. How does this change the way that the Packers plan for Aaron Rodgers, both in the way that they view their ability to win right now, or perhaps their ability to win with Jordan Love, and the leverage that they and Aaron Rodgers might suddenly have over even more teams who could be interested in a potential trade? All the ripple effects of the Tom Brady retirement, and they are myriad, coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out everything they have to offer there. You can win up to 25 times your money now at PrizePicks, and you can get up to $100 on that first deposit when you use the promo code Locked On. Tom Brady, he's out. We think. Maybe. Okay, he's serious this time, guys. He promises. And if we're going to take him at his word, and this does feel different. It felt different because the Bucs certainly didn't seem like they thought he was coming back. And I mentioned yesterday there was a team that I don't know if I mentioned this specifically, but there was a team that wasn't sure Brady was coming. And I thought, oh, that was weird. Because they seem like they're the front runner or one of the front runners for Tom Brady. And maybe now we know why. Because Tom Brady was never coming anywhere. He was going to stay. This is surprising for a lot of reasons. Even very hooked in people assumed he was coming back. Guys like Ian Rappaport said, the expectation is Brady will be back. People around the league thought he was coming back. So minds can change. This is important. And as information changes, so too does the reporting around it. That's important too. Again, we don't know what the situation is with Aaron Rodgers at this point. But I think it's interesting because the Packers can look at this in one of two ways, right? One of the ways is, hey, look, Jordan Love in this NFC, no Tom Brady. He's not going to San Francisco. So that team, they could take a step back. Who knows? Brock Purdy, there's a chance Brock Purdy is not healthy at all in 2023. Torn UCL, may or may not need Tommy John. He might not play, and that leaves Trey Lance. We don't know if Trey Lance is any good. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch said yesterday at their final season press conference, Jimmy G's not back. So if they're going to roll with Trey Lance and clearly not Tom Brady and not Jimmy G and presumably not Derek Carr, then it's Trey Lance, and we don't know what that looks like. And so if you're the Packers, you might look around and go, hey, we can win these games with Jordan Love. Like if Jordan Love is just the 15th, 18th best quarterback in the league, you add a piece here, you make a Brandon Cooks trade maybe, or you add a piece high in the draft, a top 50 kind of player, you get a Jackson Smith-Njigba or a Quentin Johnston, a Jordan Addison, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, some of these high-end tight ends that are in the draft. Maybe you can compete. This team was a couple games from really being in the mix. They probably should have won both Lions games if they get baseline quarterback play. They didn't. If they have baseline quarterback play in the second half of Giants or Washington, they win those games. Like this team was an 8-win team that played right at 8 wins, but was pretty close. They lost a bunch of these one-score games in games that they were leading, in the case of 3 of the losses, by double digits Instead of losing all 3, win 2, you're in the playoffs. You can win 10 games. And you say, okay, great. Jordan Love, whatever picks you're getting, especially if you're getting stuff for Aaron Rodgers. Hey, look, 13 from the Jets, 7 and Darren Waller from the Raiders. Hey, let's go. We're cooking. But the flip side of this, and I know the narrative all day, yesterday on Twitter and social media and big media and all that stuff, was, oh, this helps the Aaron Rodgers leverage. This helps the Packers because they're now the team with the piece that all these other teams are going to be after. And we're going to talk about that second half of the show. But what if this changes the way that the Packers view the league? Because, look, they're clearly a tier below Philadelphia, right? Clearly a tier below Philadelphia in terms of roster talent. Philly handled them. That game was close in the second half. Jordan Love made it a game in the fourth quarter. Packers got some stops and we're going to get a chance to get the ball back. They needed to recover an onside kick at the end to give themselves a chance to go tie or take the lead. They couldn't do it. It ends up being a one-score game, but Philly handled them in that game, more or less. That was before the full ascension of Christian Watson and incorporation of him into the offense, but still. And the 49ers, last year's version, they were in a different class. They would have walked over the Packers. And right now, the Packers, last year, they did not play as well as the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were better than them last year. But the Vikings, frauds. Frauds. I said it for weeks on this show. It continues to be true. Now, by the way, Ejiro Evero is a defensive coordinator candidate there. Brian Flores is a defensive coordinator candidate there. That defensive roster still stinks, and they don't have a ton of ways to make it better. But those are better coaches than Green Bay has. So, but still, the Vikings, they have a lot of question marks, and they were not a 13-win team. Not really. They were like a 9-win team, 10-win team. Mike McCarthy's calling plays in Dallas. If you're the Packers, do you look around and go, well, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, last year we win 10, 11 games. I think you could make the case that, now the Giants game, the second half, there's no excuse for the way Rodgers played, but then he's hurt against the Jets. He's hurt against the Commanders. And those are games that you expected to win. But they didn't win because your quarterback is hurt. He's hurt against the Titans. That's a game you expect to win. Your quarterback's hurt, doesn't play well. You can talk yourself into, well, another year of continuity with these guys. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs takes a step. All the stuff we were saying about Jordan Love, it's that, but it's Aaron Rodgers. And it's more known. You tweak the contract so that it's not so crippling next year. And you say, I don't know, the NFC is pretty wide open. Yeah, we missed our chance last year in what was a wide open NFC, but it's going to be just as wide open next year, if not more. Philly's not going to stay as healthy as they did. James Bradbury is a free agent. Who knows what can happen with Lane Johnson and his injuries. Another year older for guys like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. So Jason Kelce, are they going to be as good next year as they were this year? If they win the Super Bowl, they're not going to care. But it matters for the Packers as they look around the landscape and go, I don't know, incrementally better, puts them in the conversation. They beat the Cowboys last year. Cowboys were a playoff team. Cowboys won a playoff game. And no, the Packers weren't going to be scared of the Bucs in their current iteration with Tom Brady. But if Tom Brady goes to San Francisco, you're very clearly still behind San Francisco. The 49ers, though, they have decisions to make. Mike McGlinchey, they have to re-sign. That one of their linebackers is a free agent. They have secondary question marks in terms of free agents. And it's, okay, Trent Williams, is he going to stay healthy? Christian McCaffrey, is he going to stay healthy? George Kittle, is he going to stay healthy? Deebo Samuel, is he going to stay healthy? No, they're a very good roster. Brock Purdy was able to just, manage everything that was going on there because it was such a good roster. What if Trey Lance isn't the passer that Brock Purdy is? I mean, we haven't seen him operate the offense the same way that Brock Purdy did. So if Brock Purdy's not healthy, And it's 6 months from now is when he can start playing at the earliest. So far from a given that he looks like the guy that we saw at the end of this season to start the regular season. So it is really interesting, this inflection point that the Packers find themselves at. Now, I think the more responsible way of looking at this is they're a year away with Rodgers or with Love. Even if you can swing a big trade, like if you think you can swing a trade for like Nuke, DeAndre Hopkins, okay, I think you can talk yourself into it, get some defensive improvements in the draft, another playmaker in the draft, and see what you can do. But more likely, you're talking about 2024 and making the playoffs in 2023. You could do it, and it'd be nice, obviously, but you're probably not going to get yourself into that class. So it makes more sense to play for 2024, which means Jordan Love. But I think the Tom Brady thing has a potential to muddy the water in a way that maybe I didn't anticipate, because I didn't anticipate Tom Brady not playing. I anticipated him not only playing, but playing potentially in the NFC. And so him not playing in the NFC may change Rodgers' calculations. Maybe Rodgers is now going, well, I go to Tampa, I go to Carolina, I go to New Orleans. Maybe that's an appealing place. And that broadens the scope. And we're going to talk about that because that is interesting coming up here in just a second. Today's episode brought to you by our new sports betting partner, FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And they are a great partner because they give you so many options. It's the only app you need at your Super Bowl party. So many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. In-game betting, live betting, anytime touchdown scores, same game parlays. And Super Bowl 57, because you're a Locked On Packers listener, you can get a no sweat first bet, which means you can get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your bet doesn't win. If your bet doesn't win, I got to have a little hedge on the Eagles because I got the Chiefs at 4-1. Trying to figure out if I can get something in there, low money that's a hedge that I think is going to win, maybe buy down. I got to think about this. I got to think about how I can get there and give myself a reasonable hedge because I feel good about it. We'll see what we can do. Join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Locked On is heading to the Senior Bowl. Get inside analysis from the hosts that cover the NFL's next generation in college and find out which NFL draft boards these players will be climbing all in one location. Subscribe to Locked On NFL Draft for nightly live shows from the Super Bowl on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. So for all the reasons this is interesting for the Packers, it gets more interesting for these other teams. And it might make these fringe teams a little more aggressive in pursuing any quarterback, not just Aaron Rodgers. So maybe now the Saints are more interested in a veteran than they might have otherwise been because they're going, well, if Tom Brady's not in San Francisco, that team could take a step back. Philly might take a step back. The Cowboys could take a step back. The Bucs are clearly going to take a step back. The Vikings are not going to win as many games unless they can pull out some miraculous draft. They don't have a lot of financial ways to make themselves better, and in fact are probably going to lose talent. So maybe we can be more aggressive. Maybe we can get in on a package for an Aaron Rodgers. Maybe we want to pursue Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe we want to pursue Derek Carr. But now there are three guys, and Aaron Rodgers sits by far at the top of that heap in terms of quality of player. Now, if you want to get Derek Carr in a trade, you have to do it before the Super Bowl. We talked about this yesterday. Restructure that contract. Get the deal done. He's yours. Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going to be able to sign outright. No draft pick compensation. Derek Carr, I think there's a chance that you just are able to sign him outright, which means no draft pick compensation. It still just takes one team to go, we're going to pay it for Aaron Rodgers. And when you add in, like now the Raiders, they don't have other options. Like they have Jimmy G or Aaron Rodgers. That's a no-brainer. If you want to win right now, and I think there is going to be pressure on the Raiders to win now, and I think Josh McDaniels is going to feel that pressure, and Mark Davis is going to want to put together a team right now today. They tried to do it last year with Josh McDaniels, going to get Devontae Adams, going to get Chandler Jones, and they weren't able to pull it off. I think they're going to double down this offseason, which is why I think Aaron Rodgers is a very real possibility in Las Vegas. But these other teams, there's just not that many options. This is a supply and demand problem. Because the Bucs are going to want a veteran quarterback to try and compete with this roster right now, because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are still on that team. Devin White and Levante David and Antoine Winfield Jr. and Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon, they're still in Tampa. Tryon Shanka. That team can be a better version of what they were last year with a quarterback who's not so afraid to get hit, and maybe, a little bit of innovation in the offensive coaching staff. They should feel like they can compete. The Panthers, absolutely, with Frank Reich, you should feel like you can compete if you have competent quarterback play. I would be calling on Derek Carr if I were Carolina, or Jimmy G. And after those top guys, you're looking at Jacoby Brissett, who I think is a nice option. He makes sense. He's the sort of thinking man's Jameis Winston in Tampa Bay, and we saw Jameis have some success with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and those guys. Brissett, I think at this point in his career, certainly a better quarterback than Jameis Winston, no question, but still prone to some let me force the ball into coverage kind of situations. That's the next class of quarterback. And I think you can make the case, Brissett, after the way he played in Cleveland, probably belongs in the Carr, Jimmy G, middle class of quarterbacks. So that's a small group. The Commanders, they want to win. They want to win right now. They want to win this year. They've been building to win this year. They were building to win last year. That's what they went and got Carson Wentz for. They're going to want a veteran. They're telling people, yeah, Sam Howell. No, they want a veteran. And because they want to win now. They know they can't win with Sam Howell. So there's limited options here. The Indianapolis Colts, now they're probably going to draft someone. So that's one less team in the mix. But there are a lot. Tua Tagovailoa passed concussion protocol, but that doesn't mean he's going to keep playing. The Dolphins might be in the market for a quarterback, which might be, by the way, how Tom Brady gets back in the mix here. Tua decides to step away, and then the Dolphins are like, well, what? And then Brady's like, hey guys, over here, I can play. This wide open market only amplifies the value of someone like Aaron Rodgers. Now, it also means that Rodgers, if he wants to be traded, we're caveating all of this, is going to have a potentially broader pick of teams. Now he might say, hey, San Francisco. No, I don't think the 49ers are going to do that. They don't really have the draft assets that some of these other teams do. I don't think Rodgers wants to do that. But Carolina, Frank Reich, veteran head coach, Super Bowl winning coach, not head coach, but Super Bowl winner recently. There's talent on that team. It's a warm weather team, and you could win. Rodgers could own that division for another 3 years if he wanted to play, because there's no signs any of those teams have quarterbacks worth anything. If you're the Falcons, do you go after one of these veteran quarterbacks? Desmond Ridder didn't show that much. This is a kind of a quarterback-proof offense. Bring Jimmy G in and go make a playoff run. There is so many opportunities out there. I think the fact that Tom Brady is walking out the door, it's going to be like the NBA this year, where so many teams are going to wait until the very last minute on the trade deadline because they're going, well, we're in the play-in. Why would we sell? Why would we sell? We could get into the play-in. If we get into the play-in, we can get into the playoffs. And playoff revenue, that matters. Playoff prestige, owners care about that stuff. There are so many teams now that can talk themselves into, we are 1 or 2 players away, because Tom Brady, right or wrong, last year that wasn't a good team. So a lot of people picked the Bucs to beat the Cowboys in the playoffs. They got boat raced, but a lot of people picked the Bucs because Tom Brady is the boogeyman. And so you look around the league and there are going to be teams going, well, if Tom Brady is not here, like, why not us? Why wouldn't we go make a play for Lamar Jackson? Why wouldn't we go make a play for Aaron Rodgers? Let's go try and win this thing right now. And they could. And what does that mean for Green Bay? Price. And already, and I was on a Jets show yesterday. Think about this, okay? The Jets have the 13th pick. Let's say teams are going to offer you 2 firsts. Let's call it a first this year and a conditional first next year and stuff. Most of these teams can match the stuff part. They can give you a desirable asset in addition to the picks. Well, you can do what the Steelers did with Chase Claypool and find the best pick. You can do what the Raiders did with Khalil Mack and find the best pick. In both cases, it turned out to be the Chicago Bears. Well, 7, which is what the Raiders have, is better than 13. And Waller is a better piece than Corey Davis. So now, well, what if Carolina calls? And they will offer you their top 10 pick and Jeremy Chin. Or, like this now becomes a bidding war. And now the price goes up. Whereas a couple days ago, teams could talk themselves into at least Tom Brady because he can't sign until, March. And you have this thing, sort of over everything. And you go, well, but I'll get Tom Brady. So why would I trade for Aaron Rodgers until I need to? Well, the Packers can hold on to Aaron Rodgers until March if they need to. They can hold on to him until June. They don't have to pay that option bonus until the start of the season. Now, they probably want to get a deal done if there's a deal to be had. Remember, this is all with the caveat that if there's a deal to be had before the draft, because you want that immediate draft compensation. This is only going to drive the price up for the Packers. And now you get to pit multiple buyers against one another. And there are buyers out there with premium assets that are going to want Aaron Rodgers. And I think a lot of Packer fans are, they're thinking about, the down season and it wasn't great and he's not Rodgers anymore. And all that's true. But some of these teams are so quarterback starved. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, they had Cam Newton for a couple incandescent seasons, went to a Super Bowl. Other than that, it's been pretty bleak. The Buccaneers have had basically one star quarterback in their franchise, and it was the guy that just retired. They just won a Super Bowl. The Falcons, I guess you could call Matt Ryan a star quarterback. I don't think they've had a true star quarterback since Prime Vic. That's a long time. The Jets haven't had a star quarterback since Joe Namath. The Raiders haven't had a true, like Rich Gannon, the end of his career, but like you have to go back a ways with the Raiders. These franchises are desperate, not just for the player, but for the cachet. And so I think if this ends up being a trade, I still think that's where we're headed. The value for Aaron Rodgers today. What did Fat Joe say? Yesterday's price is not today's price. That's true with Aaron Rodgers. With Tom Brady off the board, there is one superstar quarterback on the market. It's Aaron Rodgers. And everyone who wants a quarterback, who wanted a veteran, is going to be angling for that guy. All right, we're going to finish up here. But before we do, today's episode brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made easy, daily fantasy made simple, because all you have to do is beat the number. Giannis rebounds. You think he's going to get more than the number PrizePicks sets? LaMelo Ball assists. You think, let's call it 8.5. You think LaMelo's going to get more than that or fewer than that? Put a couple of those players together and you can win up to 25 times your money. That's daily fantasy made easy. That's it. All you have to do, beat the number that PrizePicks sets for you. And any sport you can think of, the NFL, which is almost over, the NBA, baseball, which is starting soon, hockey, golf, entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 when you use the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, they'll give you $100. You put in 50, they'll give you 50. Like it's that easy. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On to sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Subscribe to Locked On NFL to get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday and Monday. Local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. Locked On NFL available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. All right, back tomorrow, our final show of the week before we head to Glendale, Arizona for the Super Bowl. We will be there for Super Bowl week. If you're in Phoenix, I don't know, should we do a meetup? Should we do something? A little happy hour, get a beer? Let me know. If you want to do a meetup, let me know. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Tell me there. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, we might be going live during the Super Bowl. Keep an eye out for that. Go subscribe on our Locked On Packers YouTube page to stay Locked On Packers.